That means we're live. I think I heard a little tinkle. Hello, everybody. It's me, GhostCritic, and welcome to the third Pure Comics podcast. Pure Comics podcast is an hour-long podcast with one of my fellow comic book YouTubers, and this week I have the guy whose finger is on the pulse of the news. Fortunately, that's good because that is the theme this week. He has his own Google Hangout podcast weekly with the Comic Book Roundtable. It's the king of the podcasts. It's Travis, Oddfellow's Thoughts. Thank you for joining me, Travis.
Pleasure to be here. King, I don't know so much about that, but you know.
Oh, no, let's not be modest.
Oh.
So, yes, the theme this week is comic book news. And I basically chose you because you do, I mean, you have your segment called What the Fugue, and you comment and you critique what's going on in the comic book industry as a whole,
Sure,
rather than what's actually going on in the comic books. And the first question that kind of popped into my mind that I thought, well, I wonder, how did you cope before the internet for comic book news?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I didn't care. Right? Right? I mean, you know, and then of course there's always the stuff that comes after that. You know, was I happier before the internet gave me so much information? I probably was. I mean, to be honest,
you said that.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely weeks that stuff comes out and whatnot, and whether it be actual honest to God news or it just be the whatever the internet hysteria to hate for the week is kind of a thing. I don't know. I think I mean, it was great, I guess. I mean, because you just didn't worry about it. You just buy your comics, right? You did all the other stuff that goes along with it. The perceived drama, real drama, or whatever it was great. I mean, in a sense. I mean, I like this era because now I'm way more educated about stuff that I wouldn't have without the internet. You know, just getting a sense of how are things made and that aspect of comics. But some of the stuff that, well, any 24-hour news cycle, right? I mean, I guess it's a critique on news in general, almost. In the sense
absolutely, yeah.
That we get more than what we maybe want or need, or what's real, what is it? I mean, so much of it now is rumor. It's never actual news. You know, honest to God, hey, this is actually happening, real stuff. So much of it is rumor.
No, I totally agree, and I get the whole. It is just like the news in general, and it does kind of follow on where it gets to the point of. Do you think? I mean, given where we are such a niche kind of media kind of deal, do we need to actually know as much as we are offered? Do you think? I mean, I'm thinking of stuff like you say, creator arguments, disputes with publishers. You know, there was that whole stuff a few years ago with Brian Wood and his allegations of his sexual harassment. It started to feel a bit gossipy, kind of Hollywood.
Right, more of the rag kind of thing versus
absolutely
versus news. Yeah, and
news, yes,
yeah, and I mean, and it is news. I mean, I guess because these creators, to some degree, we elevate them as being stars, right? So then it almost feels like, to some degree, then what they do outside of the medium becomes part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, whether you choose to embrace that or not. And I go back and forth. I mean, I have clearly, if you go back and look at my history of having that kind of information, what I've chosen to do with it, you know, happy to have it, but at the same time, like I said, it's kind of frustrating because some of that stuff I react to, and I'm trying not to react to as much of it. It's kind of funny that we're talking news because I've kind of in the last, I don't know, 6 months, I've kind of went, you know, I need to not react to as much of the stuff that comes out that comes out as it does, you know, or make my own informed decision, but not try and inform anybody else's decision on what's out there.
and there is that thin line. And when I kind of talk about, because we obviously go to all these established news sites, but then there is so much in the way of like the social networking now, you know, with your Twitter and your Facebook and all that kind of stuff, that people start, you know, personally, as in you, me, whoever, as a personal reader, start throwing their opinions out into the internet ether, so to speak. And there are kind of pros and cons to that, I guess. And you've just got to be kind of ready for them if you're going to throw out your opinion. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as, you know, you're not being particularly derogatory to anyone, or you're not harming anyone. You should, even though we know we're never going to in a kind of this internet age, you know, we're going to have a serious or adult debate, let's say, without the death threats and such like. I mean, when it gets to that level,
which is unfortunate, because I think some of the stuff that comes out of the news and everything, there are good conversations to be had there. But yeah, they devolve awfully quickly. It seems it does not take very long before it goes from being what we'd hope as close as possible to an adult conversation to the ugly side of the internet. But I don't think most people behave that way. In reality, it's just the internet makes it awfully easy too.
Awfully easy, yeah. But I mean, I know we're talking about like the harsh end and the kind of ugly end of social network, but it has done a lot of kind of good stuff and kind of the power of social media and the people who get together. I mean, for one, it's like the Gail Simone when she was taken off Batgirl, and the whole kind of en masse, what are you doing, that kind of brought her back. Whether, I mean, I don't know altogether whether I believe all that, but then again, you know, it's all rumor and speculation.
I only believe it because I believe Gail. I don't think Gail would spin that kind of a yarn for them to fake her being off of it to suddenly create this. I just don't. I don't know. My personal conversations with her and whatnot is, I have a hard time. I mean, Glenn, I don't know her, you know, but I have a hard time viewing that as being something other than what it was. And you're right. I mean, in my opinion, that was a piece of news that we would have, back in the day, she would just been off the book, right? We would have just had no idea. She just suddenly wasn't the creator on the book anymore, without any real information as to why that happened or whatever, or for us to make some sort of an informed choice to, you know, as a collective go, whoa, this is crazy, put her back on the book and have her back on the book. I guess, unless you didn't like her on the book, then.
No, I never read it. I have to say, I never read the New 52 one of it, so I had really no opinion, to be honest.
Right, sure.
But it was interesting to see, you know, like I said, the power of this social networking that we've got that creates such a fuss about it all, and all kind of supported her and got her back on the book. But what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought then. Sorry.
Well, I mean, like I said, for me, the news is a double-edged sword. I mean, there's part of me that says, if I didn't know any stuff, I mean, hell, even if I didn't even know solicitations, I think I'd be happier with my comics. I mean, just in the whole, the amount of information that's out there. If I didn't pay attention to the solicitations, I'd actually have surprises and whatnot. You know, I mean, it's all of that kind of stuff. The news sometimes wrecks that too, right?
Absolutely. They're spoiler ridden.
Right. At some point, especially with the big two, they feel like that they need to come out and say something before it happens. You know, somebody starts to catch wind of it. There's some rumblings and whatnot, and then in this day and age, they feel like they have to do damage control. I think sometimes, if it's something that seems like it's out of place, like with some of the stuff that's coming up with DC and, well, even Marvel in the past, if they don't start coming out and announcing something and making news out of it, then it becomes somebody creates something else out of it. to keep us informed instead of misinformed. I mean, how much more interesting would it have been, like with Marvel, with the current Thor run, if they wouldn't have made big announcements out of it? That we just were reading the Thor book, and suddenly
it just happened and evolved.
And suddenly Odin's son loses the ability to pick up the hammer, and suddenly there's this other person picking up the hammer. I almost think that'd be more exciting. I mean, granted, I think there'd be people who would have missed out on it because they wouldn't have been paying attention to the fact that maybe they wanted to go and check out a new version of the Thor. But it's one of those kind of news things that I sometimes, I would almost prefer the surprise, not to have the news.
It does seem like a little bit too much information, doesn't it? I mean, you get all these advanced previews. They give you the first 3 or 4 pages on places like Newsarama and the like, and it kind of spoils that cliffhanger that you just had. And it's not even like these are like months down the line. It's not just like, oh, this is your next issue. It's again, it's much like the movie industry. They pump out all these advertisements and the trailers for their movies, and you feel like you've almost read, or in the case of movies, watched it before you even get there.
Right. And as far as the other side of that news, the us knowing about creators, some of their behaviors or bad habits or whatever kind of stuff. I'm learning not to look for that stuff, but I can't ignore it when I find out about it.
Yeah,
kind of a thing. And then for me personally, it's kind of a personal choice as to how I want to respond to that. If it's something I mean, like I said, it's all my own personal set of morals as to what do we cross before it becomes, if you're a creator who wants to exclude, wants to eliminate or harm a segment of the population, I'm more inclined to be way more vocal about it than in the case of like the allegations against Brian Wood, which aren't just allegations. To some degree, that behavior is a for sure thing. I mean, he admitted to. He admitted to some of that behavior, not taking it as far as the accusers said, but I mean, so there is some version in there that's somewhat accurate. When it comes to that sort of stuff, then I get into the dilemma of how do you separate artists from the creation, kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
There's lots of art out there that I love, and I think that some of those artists throughout history were probably pretty despicable people if we knew all the stuff about them that you could find out about them.
Well, this is what I think. I mean, I don't know how much of the news you get over from our side, but at the moment, and it's been going on and on for quite some time, but kind of like some beloved kind of TV presenters of the 70s, they've just been revealed as, sexual child abuse and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But obviously back in the 70s, there's no internet, there's, and all that kind of stuff. It's not as prevalent. And you do wonder, toning it down a little bit from child abuse, that, if we'd had the internet in Jack Kirby's day when he was being treated so terribly, whether things would, people have in their way now, much later down the line, en masse, supported his family that have still here. But if things had been different back then for him, and we'd have known as we were reading all those great stories, and it kind of comes back to right at the beginning when you were saying when we were a kid, we didn't care. We didn't know anything about that because we didn't know anything about it. And it's just like, why do we care so much? Is it just because we are grown-ups now and with the world and how it works, we're more not open to it, but we're more aware and maybe a little bit more cynical?
A combination of those things, I think. I mean, it's just, the internet, it's created this thing. It gives us a lot more space to, well, for the case of the news people, they feel like they have to keep producing content because that's how they're making a living. Most of those big sites anyway are are making some level of a living off of the content they're generating. They're not just creating the content out of the kindness of their heart. So, they need to keep having people come in, and clearly controversy gets us all, we all get titillated over the idea of, ooh, there's some juicy thing going on. We all need to go and look and see what that is, kind of a thing. And I just think it's the age we're in. I mean, I think if we would have had it back then, even as kids, I think we would be more inclined to pay a lot more attention to it. My children are the age that I was when I got serious about collecting comics. It wasn't just I mean, as a very small child, I, picked up comics here and there, but by the time I was in, middle school and high school and whatnot, I was serious about, buying comics and putting them in a box and saving them and getting them in order, all that kind of stuff. My kids are the same age. They're way more conscious of what goes on around whatever they like than clearly we were, because there wasn't access to the information. There were, I think that there were a couple of, and I can't remember the name of them now. There were a couple comic book magazine type things that came out, journals. If they didn't come out once a month, they came out quarterly, and they would talk about the news. And occasionally, they weren't in the comic store I was in, but when I would travel across the country, I'd stop places and I'd find these things, and we'd find out news. Like, we actually knew about the Batman movie before the first Batman movie came out, the Burt movie, and we were all speculating, who's going to be the Joker. I mean, I remember me and my friends having these discussions about us trying to pick who we thought would be the best Joker and whatnot, and throwing out names like William Dafoe and all this different stuff and whatnot. And then they came out with Jack Nicholson. It was like, really, Jack Nicholson? That seems, but we did have a little bit of information beforehand around some of that stuff. So I remember there being a little bit of news, and I do remember being excited getting those magazines that had kind of articles about the stuff. Some of it historical, but some of it being, this is what we think is coming kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was just way less limited. I mean, because we didn't have the facilities that we have now. So I think it's the nature of what we're in.
Yeah, I don't think we had anything like that over here in the UK. Maybe they were more kind of underground, kind of like fanzine type of deals that I never saw. I mean, I barely knew about the previews catalogue. I think the main source that, if I remember, when I really started seriously buying comics and stuff, was like the Wizard magazine,
right?
And that was a bit kind of biased, if you want to say.
Oh, sure, like, it definitely was.
Absolutely to the top two, and it's probably who paid the most to get that story.
I still kind of think that most of the news sites still are. They're beholden to those people. I mean, because you don't. I mean, that's the other side. I mean, part of all these news sites that are out there, the ones that most of us throw around and whatnot, they're beholden to those people. They can't really report anything too negative, in my opinion, or scandalous, or throw a review out there that tears it down too much, because they want the exclusive. Because every once in a while, these companies, the big two, hand out the exclusive, and they want the traffic. So I would assume that if you beat up a company too much, if you are too scandalous for a company or the creators of that company, they're not going to be really excited to give you exclusives, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It used to seem like that, the comic book resources, the Newsarama, would get most of everything. They were the big ones. Well, now there's other kind of odd places that they've started dropping pieces of exclusives and whatnot to, smaller, or what to me seemed like offbeat kind of places that are now getting some of that traffic. And I sometimes wonder if it's punishment for having said something that they didn't like. I don't know.
Giving them an 8 out of 10 rating for their latest book.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I mean, you talk about these kind of odd places. I mean, obviously you get your Newsarama, your CBR, to some lower extent, Comics Alliance. What other websites are you using to get your news from, these odd little places?
Comic Vine is another place I like. I don't get full access to it because they actually have a they actually have a membership that gives you more exclusive access to stuff quicker than what normally whatnot. That's more of their business model as far as them as a how are they staying in business kind of a thing.
Oh, okay.
But and they supply a bunch of stuff as a if you sign up as a member, they got their own Wikipedia for lots of stuff and whatnot. So it's kind of it goes beyond just the news gossipy kind of thing and whatnot. I mean, they produce a lot of their own content and stuff. Comixosity is okay. If any of them are watching, they'll hate me. I think they tend to be a little more on the social awareness side of things.
Okay.
It feels to me like I don't really read much in the way of reviews of any place. I just don't care to, because I just feel like all those places are not real truthful with the reviews, because like most of the stuff, I think if you give enough bad reviews, they're just going to quit giving you the free product to review kind of a thing. But their news tends to be more on the social side of things, diversity, that sort of stuff. Comics Alliance is kind of the same way. But I do get a certain amount of news from those two places. I've sworn off completely Bleeding Cool. A lot of people use that, and well, you've had interesting experiences with Bleeding Cool. I mean, where they suddenly use you and your content for their own purposes, kind of a thing. I personally think that site is horribly malicious, and what nothing but ill intent for everybody, because that's how they get their traffic. And I used to use it. I used to get suckered into whatever they were talking about and whatnot. Every once in a while, they are accurate on having the inside scoop on stuff. Lots of times they're not. I believe that their news has helped cancel books, because they've started rumors that something was going to get canceled. And then the way we as creatures are, it's like, oh, well, it's canceled. There's no reason for me to keep buying that book because it's canceled, and then it gets canceled. It's a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy kind of a thing.
While you're kind of on that topic, just sorry to stop you, but I was just looking at the comments, and we've got Luke Batman Video Reviews watching us, and he just left a comment a while back about how can the medium police itself in regards to credible news. A lot of sites report news based on speculation. Many of it turns out to be false, which is a lot of the times, like you said, Bleeding Cool.
Well, it's gotten so bad. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, when the whole rebirth thing started leaking out or whatever, they were reporting on a bunch of stuff. Bleeding Cool was, and the other news sites were reporting on Bleeding Cool having reported something. That's not news. Come on. I mean, I 100% agree with what Luke's saying. There needs to be accountability for the stuff that if these people are going to tote themselves as being legitimate news places, there needs to be accountability for their journalism. Bleeding Cool doesn't have any, in my opinion. So that's why the big thing for me with Bleeding Cool, what broke the camel's back, there was some stuff with the head editor of Dark Horse, Scott Alley, some news about his behavior, how he acts at cons and whatnot with other creators and stuff. The guy clearly has a bunch of problems that need to be taken care of, and just about everybody was reporting on it. Bleeding Cool took a really strange attitude with it. Normally, they're all over that kind of stuff. Let's put all the scandalous, juiciest stuff we can possibly put out there, because that's what, to generate traffic for their site. And they were really cool about it, barely reported on it, and acted like clearly nothing had happened. Kind of, it's no big deal kind of a thing. And the main person that was in charge at that time, I cannot remember her name right offhand. That's the one place that Dark Horse, they use Bleeding Cool as the place to try and do damage control, because Bleeding Cool wasn't beating them up, which to me seemed really strange that they weren't doing that. Well, after that whole thing was done, I guess I can't remember her name, the woman in charge, she now works for for Dark Horse. She's got an executive position with Dark Horse afterwards. So to me, that was the last straw. I mean, they were irritating me anyway, but that was it. I mean, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to participate in any way, shape, or form to a company that is going to burn some people down to the ground. You know, as far as airing as much dirty laundry, accurate or inaccurate dirty laundry as they possibly can, and then choose not to in some case where it's actually going to, you know, line somebody's pockets in some way. So either do it to everybody or don't do it at all. I guess is kind of where, and that was it. That was the final straw. I'm like, I can't do this anymore as far as Bleeding Cool. I just, and they bother me. I think they are poor behaviors on Twitter. If you happen to be talking about Bleeding Cool in any way on Twitter and you badmouth them, Rich Johnson, who he acts like he's an employee for Bleeding Cool. He is Bleeding Cool. I mean, he is the person of Bleeding Cool. I mean, because it used to be Bleeding Cool was not Bleeding Cool. It was In the Gutters or something like that was what it was called. And it was a little article that was occasionally in Comic Book Resources where he'd kind of talk about the gossip and industry.
I remember that. Yeah.
Well, he lost his job in advertising, and so he needed he needed to find a new job, and so he decided to take his little thing and expand it into this giant thing that it is now. But he'll come on Twitter and he'll attack you. I mean, you can ask quite a few of the YouTubers who use Twitter. If you make any off comment, he'll come on not using the Bleeding Cool Twitter handle. He'll use his own handle, and he'll just decide to harass you about. I mean, I think Matt. I think Wednesday Serial. I think he ended up blocking the guy because he wouldn't leave Matt alone over Matt saying something about Bleeding Cool. So I don't know. Bad behavior.
And apart from the fact that I don't know whether it's just my internet speed or anything like that, but it's a really bad website to actually load up.
Oh, right.
I get a lot of glitches on that, so I kind of keep it to one side. Yeah. Don't really use it either. But there was some interesting ones I didn't know about there, so I might have to add them to my little list of places to go and read news from. I thought we'd talk about some news stories, though I know we said just before we came on, a great deal has happened over the last week. Yeah. And I know a couple of topics that I wanted to talk about. I know you've addressed in your What the Fugue, but I think we can talk a little bit more about it. But I'm going to start off with, did you find the article about Marvel Comics reviving its former name, Timely Comics?
I hadn't heard about that.
Don't get too excited. Really don't. It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick. Sure. What they're doing is they're going to reprint the first 3 issues of all their new titles for $3.
Oh, how about that, huh?
But the banner at the top is going to say Timely Comics instead of Marvel Comics. It is completely a gimmick.
Oh, sure.
It's just there to kind of boost, because there's some big titles that they use. I don't know if it's every single title that they're going to use, or because there are some interesting ones that I don't think are big sellers, stuff like Awesome Hulk, Scarlet Witch, the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, but there are some other bigger ones. There's Invincible, Iron Man and Doctor Strange and that kind of stuff, but they seem to be the lower tier books that they're using. So I don't know whether this is a way to bolster up sales on that as well. So they're
reprinting a bunch of them together.
Yeah,
at a cheaper price.
3 issues at a cheaper price. So,
interesting. I know that a while ago, DC used National Comics as a secondary title on some of when the New 52, after the New 52 came out, to kind of tell some kind of odd stories. They had that Rose and Thorn. Yeah, and it was National Comics. They put at the top. I saw the DC logo on it, but they put National Comics across the top. But
I must have missed that one. I didn't see it.
And they did Kid Eternity book and a couple odd, just really strange things. But they put I don't know why. It was like they were almost thinking about making it its own little kind of not as far off the beaten path as Vertigo, but it's kind of its own little niche. This is our National Comics line as opposed to our Supernatural line. Because when the New 52 came out, they kind of, this is the Superman line, the Batman line. They had it kind of, broken up that way. That's funny though, they would use that. To me, Marvel using that just doesn't that kind of muddy their own waters? I mean, I guess you get the person who's naive and doesn't know what's going on and picks up and goes, "What the heck is this?"
Well, I mean, it's not as even from what I read in the article, and it was pretty short anyway, so I don't think I missed anything. But it's not as even if it's like an anniversary or anything of them for them to use that. And like you say, it's going to confuse people, surely. I mean, it's like, let's be honest, the newer readers are going to be like, "What the hell is Timely Comics?"
Right.
They have no idea, the origins of that and how it became Marvel Comics. So, and then to have that name at the top of, say, your newest Invincible Iron Man, they'll be like, "What?"
But I mean, even using that title, they weren't a good comic book company when they were that title. Even. I mean, they were dying, right? I don't know. To me, it seems really strange to pick an era that was not good for them.
I suppose it's the history and the evolution, I guess, of Marvel, and this is what I mean. It's like, is it because there's some sort of anniversary for Timely Comics? I don't know. I couldn't find anything really, but I guess while we're on the theme of kind of the nostalgia of an old publishing house, I guess, wanting to revive it. Shall we talk? I know you already have talked a little bit about this, but Eric Stevenson of Image Comics addressing the retailers at the Comic Pro meeting.
Yeah, I mean, he's always fun to listen to. I mean, I guess I kind of chuckle sometimes. I mean, every year, I believe just about every year you can kind of go back and find him. He'll do one of these speeches where he kind of, I mean, this is, me paraphrasing or my opinion on what he's saying. He always kind of scolds the industry. It always seems like every year he scolds the industry, tells them all what they're doing wrong. Generally, it's you're doing this all wrong, and we're going to do better. Kind of seems to be the case. And I mean, I get that. Clearly he's there to sell his company and his comics and whatnot. Some of his stuff, I agree with, but he's also, some of the stuff this latest year that he kind of got after the companies for doing, they're doing some of. I mean, he really got after the variant cover thing, and of course then he took a dig at the double shipping. I mean, because Marvel's currently doing some double shipping, and news had already broken that DC is going to be doing a lot of double shipping. So he was kind of scolding that basically the industry needs to quit doing the stuff that they know is going to hurt the industry long term, and start looking about legacy and long term. How can they make the comic book industry healthier? Great noble statement.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, apart from, I obviously agree with him about the variants and the double shipping and stuff like that, but the actual, it's the actual. Why do I always lose my words? What did you just say at the end? Sorry,
I don't remember. Well, just I mean, they want to fix the industry, but I mean, and they list the stuff.
But that's
right?
it. Sorry, yes. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's what people buy. Whether they complain about it or not, whether we get these kind of peaks of sales for the companies that come back down until the next big thing, it's what people keep buying. And at the end of the day, and this is the thing I found really weird about this. I mean, about the whole speech in general, was that he was speaking to the retailers. Okay, that information, that speech is going to get to, I mean, it's come all the way down to us.
Right.
But he's talking to retailers who surely the bottom line is keeping their customers happy. So telling them to stop buying in bulk just to get one variant for a customer, well, they're not going to do that because they want to keep that customer, because not only is that customer buying that variant, but they are probably clearly going to be buying a lot more of their stock in the shop anyway. And you just basically don't want to piss off your customers, and they're the ones that are buying off it.
Yeah.
the whole talking just to the retailers, I mean, even if he was addressing his kind of peers of DC and Marvel, it's still not going to the next level, because I don't think these days, DC and Marvel particularly have any say. You've got to go up a next one up now,
Right.
to Disney and Time Warner for DC. They're the guys that are telling you double ship, do these big events. They just want that as quickly as they can and as often as they can. And as soon as that dries out, we'll turn the lights off and we'll close the doors behind us.
Yep.
And I can't see that changing in the Marvel and DC kind of remit. That is what they're going to tell them to do time and time again.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's some serious corporate change or whatnot, or somebody comes along and buys the comic book company part of it away from the parent company. Yeah. I mean,
I can't imagine.
No, with the way movies are making money. If we didn't have the movies, I can see it happening. I mean, because that's why, to some degree, that's why these companies got folded into Time Warner and Disney and that sort of stuff, because they weren't operating well on their own, and those other large entertainment companies saw that they might be able to milk something out of it. So they're going to, and that's what they're doing, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it really comes down. You're right. It comes down to the customer, and to lay it on the retailer to try and fix it is pretty irresponsible. I mean, because how often do we listen to other people's YouTube videos and whatnot, and they have a horrible comic book experience when they go into their comic book shop, and they have the comic book owners telling you what you should or shouldn't like and what you should or shouldn't buy, right? And that puts you off, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
When you want to go and buy a Watchmen book that is, and your shop chooses not to sell them, right? So so yeah, so I mean, putting that on them to say, for them, the retailer, to go back to their customer and go, well, we're not getting those variants in anymore because we're not going to subscribe to that kind of marketing behavior or whatever. I mean, I'd love them to quit. I think a lot of retailers would love to quit, but you're right. It really does come down to the customer and the customer's consumption. And I don't know. I have to admit the variant cover and that whole buy a whole bunch just to get that variant. I have a hard time envisioning how the money is there for the retailer. I mean, I know they do it because they're trying to make the customer happy, but
I mean, that's it. I mean, I would never tell anyone how to collect comics, but all these people that go out and purchase these variants, I would hope that they'd realize that, your comic book store has probably had to buy maybe in excess of 300 comics just for that one issue. And the likelihood of them selling those 300 comics is very, very slim. So what happens is they get thrown in a bargain bin for 50 cents, 50p, whatever. That shop makes a loss on it. That's not just happening to one title, it's happening to many titles. You're putting your comic book store out of business. Yeah, because they can't keep buying, because there's no longer this return policy that that the big two used to have way back in the day. They have to keep them. They have to sell them and try and sell them for at least what they paid for them. That one variant that you got for your customer, that's not going to kind of offset how much you paid for the other 300.
Exactly.
It's harsh, but true.
Yeah. So I see the concern there, because I mean, people get into the whole conversation about, is there a bubble to comics and is it going to burst and we're going to, everything's going to collapse. I personally don't think that's going to happen, but this is one of the ways I think it could really, really hurt the industry further. I don't think it'll be the collapse of comics. I think it'll be the collapse of comic book stores is what I think it'll be the collapse of. And I think there's enough other ways to get your books that if a lot of the mom and pop stores go under, I still think that it doesn't sink the comic book industry. But
oh no,
it does definitely. It makes what me and you do, buying physical comics, even more of a niche market, doesn't it? I mean, it makes us more and more like those people who buy vinyl records, right? I mean, we're that kind of, it'll always be there. I think it'll always be there. It's just going to be this kind of weird little thing, though. If I don't know, I like I said, I understand. I mean, I think that I think there is part of Stevenson's heart that's in the right place. I mean, I think that he wants to see a healthy industry, not just for his own employment, but in general. But yeah, it's hard not to look cynical at some of what he said and go.
There was one bit when I was reading down it, and what did he say? Given that he's, he is having a pop at DC and Marvel.
Sure.
One of the things he said was, a colleague of mine recently said, I've literally never liked working in comics less. Now, I just thought, colleague, so he actually works for yourself. He works for Image Comics, the place where it's meant to be all great, and we're doing things better than you. And this guy or girl, I don't know, is not having a really great time. I just thought that was a hilarious kind of comment to make.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were supposed to take it that when he meant colleague, he meant like anybody that's in the same industry as him, or
I would hope so, and not actually someone who works at him.
Right. So,
no,
yeah.
I just thought, I mean, like you said, there were a lot of things that I agreed with what he said. I don't think it was directed at the right market, at the right people, but I just don't really see it greatly changing. If ever, to be honest, it will keep running itself until we, as collective readers, stop falling into it.
Yeah,
falling into that trap of the big events, buying it all in bulk, the variants, etc. I don't know.
Yeah, not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And just as a disclaimer, I don't hold anything against anybody who buys those variants or whatnot. I mean, if that's what you want to collect, awesome, because that's what this is about, is you buying what you want to buy and enjoying what you want to enjoy. So I mean, I will occasionally get the variants that are the same price, but I'm a cheapskate. I'm not going to pay top dollar for some of those.
I mean, I very rarely ever get variant covers, but when that I Hate Fairyland, the Scotty Young, I mean, I didn't even know there were variant covers for it, but my comic book guy was like, oh, do you not want to get this cover? And I was like, what? It's a variant one. I was like, how much more is that going to cost me? No, it's the same price. So if it's the same price, and it's a better cover, I'll probably buy it.
Yeah.
Because
and I've done that. I mean, there's a couple of books that are coming out now that I'm buying the variant because I like the style of the variants better than the main one. But it's the same price. But even that, I mean, I know that causes problems too, because then the retailer is having to buy two. So either they're buying extras, or at the end of the day, whoever doesn't have it on their pull, somebody's going to get left with whichever covers left there, whether it's the cover they want. I guess that's the shame on you for not having it on your pull. I guess I don't know. I don't know. I try to be a responsible buyer, because I sit around and I mean I care enough about my comic books that I want it to be a healthy place and whatnot, and so I think about all that stuff sometimes, but I don't know. Still cave occasionally. So
another kind of news item that you mentioned on What the Fugue, I think it was last week, was the whole R-rated movie phenomenon that's grown from Deadpool coming out as apparently the first R-rated comic book movie ever. Not.
No.
Seriously. But they seem to, when the Batman and Superman movie gets brought out, like you said, it's getting an R-rated release.
Right.
And I have to say, I agree with you entirely. This, maybe it's just me being cynical, but they've done this on purpose because they've seen how well Deadpool did, surely.
Oh, sure. Well, it was part of a conversation, right? I mean, before they went, oh, when we release the Blu-ray, we're going to have a R-rated version also. it had been a conversation anyway. They had been talking, of course, you had all the uproar of the people wanting to change the Deadpool from an R rating to a PG, 13 rating, so their kid could go watch it and, whatever. So that clearly generates, chatter and excitement. Negative press is good press when it comes to that sort of a thing. Then after the movie was made, it's making lots of money. Oh my gosh, here's a superhero movie that's rated R. It's making lots of money. Conversation. So sure, jump on the bandwagon of that kind of a thing. I bet that there would have been an R-rated version anyway. I just don't know that they would have announced it.
Do you?
Yeah. Because I believe there is a R-rated version of the Avengers too. They just didn't take out. They just didn't take out all of the violence. I mean, there's like this. They film the movie, they put in all the whatever wrecking they want to do, and then they decide, okay, like in the case of Avengers, how long is Loki going to twist the spear in Coulson's chest before he walks away, kind of a thing. Oh, that's a little too grim. You need to tone that down. So they cut that little piece out, right? Make it a little less, and then it's PG-13. Yay, everybody's happy. And I mean, because there's going to be a difference between Batman, Superman rated R movie and Deadpool rated R movie. It's not like Superman and Batman are going to be flying around dropping F-bombs and stuff like that. I mean, that's not what they're editing out. I'm sure of it. They did is they just ratcheted the violence down to the point to where whoever the people are who make the decisions on the rating, whatever that thing. I don't think they're cutting out the naked scene with Wonder Woman for the PG-13 version and then dropping it back in. I don't think they're crazy enough to have that kind of a scene anywhere in the thing, right? So, or a naked version of Clark, kind of thing.
Can you imagine?
Yes, I don't think that's what's in the rated R version. I mean, if it is, kudos for them. I think they'll even sell even more copies of the Blu-ray if that's the case. I think people will clamor to get that. So, but I just don't see that being, I don't see that being what they're cutting out of it as being rated R versus what the rated R for Deadpool probably is. So I say probably because I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know. No,
I'm going to say neither have I. It is kind of setting a very kind of dangerous precedent though on kind of changing these movies to an R-rated. I mean, Newsarama, I didn't read it, but they've already the top 10 comic books we want as R-rated, and you can see this happening now. It's gonna become storyline second.
Yeah. Hasn't Fox already announced that the next Wolverine movie will be rated R? I thought they had.
I think I caught something about that. Yes.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate. I think part of the problem is people will drag their kids to an R-rated movie. I mean, everybody I've heard that's gone and watched Deadpool has talked about there being kids in the theater. So that's the other problem is the theaters. I mean, I don't know. The rule, I guess the rule is if you have a parent with you, you can go see whatever you want to as long as your guardian's with you. So it's been so long since I went to the cinema. I don't even know how that works. Yeah. It's like ours is like it goes PG 12, 15, 18. Yeah.
We don't have that R, but 18 is basically an R-rated movie.
Right.
From your side. But I didn't think you just had to be over the age of 18 to go into those.
My kids are both under 18. I could take them to Deadpool if I wanted to.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm there to make sure they aren't, I don't know, they're not going to be warped afterwards or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I'm there making the informed decision to allow them to see something that the industry is rated at a level that they shouldn't watch it. Okay. At least in America, that's how it operates. And so, so there are lots of, so it didn't hurt ticket sales to make it that because
absolutely not.
Everybody took their kids anyway, or a lot of them took their kids anyway. I don't know.
There is a bad side about, Deadpool getting so popular because the next storyline, did you read about that Deadpool's robbed a bank in Ohio, made off with $2,000?
Awesome.
He wore the Deadpool mask.
Yeah. That's right.
God.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything wrong with the rated R if the story justifies it being that way. I completely get why a Deadpool would be that way, because I mean Deadpool is a pretty crass character, so I can see you venturing off into all kinds of stuff that would be inappropriate for somebody under the age of 18 in the Puritan world. So but yeah, you're right. I there is certainly a concern with, let's just make it as, let's hit all the R-rated, tropes instead of let's tell a good story. So,
so did you pick anything up off the news? Did you manage to find anything? I've got a few more.
No, horribly. I mean, it's like I couldn't find anything that hadn't already been like, that wasn't like from a week or two ago kind of a thing.
Well, I mean, these are all just a few small points, smaller stories, but the whole DC Rebirth, not so much about what's happening, but that for the June new releases, it's going to get its own previews magazine like Marvel does.
Oh, yeah.
I've always thought this is weird that Marvel get its own preview magazine anyway. Right. I don't know if there's a story behind that or why it's not included in the main catalogue, but I'm surprised DC haven't already done one of their own anyway.
Yeah, that is strange, isn't it? I bet Marvel pays for theirs. I bet Marvel pays
as well, surely.
But yeah, I don't know where they chose to spend their money at, I guess.
I mean, it is only for that month. It's not an ongoing thing, and obviously, I know next to nothing about this DC Rebirth. All I know is that there's going to be lots of double shipping, so I'm going to be dropping my Batman books and probably will have nothing left to collect from DC, because I don't see Midnight there. I don't see Dr. Fate there. Nope. I don't know if I'm even collecting any more DC books than that, apart from Vertigo ones. Yeah,
most of the odd titles are gone.
They're gone. So I'm sorry. I know.
Going back to their core, going back to the Trinity and the Justice League. Basically, everything spins out of that. It feels like so.
Okay. Oh, well, bye, DC.
yeah. When I first heard the rumor first threw around about double shipping, I was like 98% sure there's no way in hell I'm picking up any double ship book. Now I'm caving some. I want to see what it's really going to put out. I mean, I can think of a few ways that double shipping might work, but if it's double shipping like they double ship Marvel books, I'm done. And that freaks me out to think I'm not collecting Detective Comics anymore and stuff, because there's a few of those books I've just always bought, even when they're bad. I've always bought them, but I can't justify buying them twice a month if they're bad, kind of a thing. So.
I mean, obviously they're renumbering them back to issue number 1 as well. Right. Apart from, surprise, because there's an anniversary coming up.
Sure.
In the next couple of years, Action Comics and Batman coming up to their
Action Comics and Detective.
A Detective, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
They're hitting some major milestones.
Yeah. Well, a double shipped, it won't take them any time at all to get to
no.
Get to their 1,000, so yeah.
Just in time for the movie coming out. No, I think the movie's going to be out by then. No, yeah. We would hope.
Yeah.
What else did I have? I talked about Deadpool robbing the bank, but the other crime news in comics, the artwork of Bill Sienkiewicz getting stolen. That was, there's a 5K reward being offered, but basically if I'd have stolen that, I'm keeping it and I'm not telling anyone anyway.
Right. I guess it depends on who stole it, right? Did a comic book fan steal it, or did somebody else go, oh, this is a piece of original art I think I can sell, and stole it? Because if that's the case, they're screwed, because that picture is all over social media that I don't think you're going to be able to ever sell it to anybody, not at any reasonable price, because whoever buys it, it's stolen art, right? You can buy it and admire it in your secret vault, but
no one is going to know you have it.
Yes. So if you happen to see it on my wall, it's a reprint. It's not the real thing. Would never buy stolen art. But yeah, he mailed it from the United States to France, got to France, and then disappeared. Somebody opened the box and took it out. So all there was the empty box. So yeah. Yeah, crazy, huh?
Some lucky person in France has now got a free bit of sync of its art.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool looking.
It did look good, the Batman.
Yeah.
The only other thing I've got, and it's such a silly thing, but it annoys me so much. It's Marvel's second wave of adult coloring books.
So why does that annoy you?
It's just such an oxymoron.
You're not gonna,
coloring book.
just call it a coloring book. Why does it have to? Anyway, so you're not excited to get your Doctor Strange coloring book in October?
No. Seriously, what is wrong with the people of today that adults now need coloring books?
It's relaxing and cathartic.
Have a beer, have a glass of wine, read a comic book.
Read a comic book. I know, that's what I was thinking too. That's why I read my comic book.
The worst thing is Todd McFarlane is putting out a Spawn coloring book too.
Yeah.
What is the world coming to? And oh, hello, Image falling in with the mistakes,
right?
The gimmicks.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I just don't get the whole fascination, this new trend with adult coloring books. It annoys the hell out of me.
So we can all learn to be colorists, because anybody can be a colorist, right? I mean, that's just goes to show what their value is. I'm joking, colorist. I'm joking. But I don't know. It just kind of to me almost seems like a dig, doesn't it? Of you two can now get your crayons and your color pencils out.
Come and work for Image.
That's and I totally joke, because in this day and age, colorists make or break a lot of books. So
they have got this status now, haven't they?
Yeah.
Certainly have come up the ranks, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all the news topics that I'd got, and you couldn't find anything.
No, I guess not anything I thought was necessarily worth talking about and whatnot, because you kind of brought up some of the ones I thought were funny, like the Deadpool robbing the bank and some of that stuff.
But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up then.
Awesome.
I would just like to say thank you very much, Travis, for joining me on this Pure Comics podcast. Thank you to everyone who's been watching. We've had we've got 9 viewers on so far. I know some people have been commenting. Thank you very much. Sorry if we didn't get around to answering all your questions, but we'll be back again soon. I'll have someone else out there chatting one-on-one for an hour or so. Just leaves me to say thank you, Travis, again for joining me and talking news. We'll do it again. Say goodbye.
Bye.